Hi everyone, and welcome back to Classical Conscience. Today I am thrilled to be joined by the phenomenal composer and a dear friend, Marco Beltrami. For those of you who may not be familiar with Marco's work, you would have heard his music if you watched films such as Snowpiercer, The Hurt Locker, or the recent Ford v Ferrari. If you like Marvel movies, then you would recognize his scores to Logan or perhaps The Wolverine. Or if you're the kind of person who likes scary movies, then you would have heard his unsettling music to frightening films such as A Quiet Place. I met Marco 6 years ago when he wrote a concert suite for me based on his music from Snowpiercer. Lately, we've been cooking up a tremendously unique project based on Bach, and I am so excited to talk to you about it today because we have been working incredibly hard to prepare it for the concert hall. So let's go say hi to Marco. Hi Marco, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Sandy. So nice to be here, although it kind of sucks too because you're not here.
I know, it would be so much more fun to do this in person.
Totally. It's this COVID thing is getting old.
It's getting outdated.
Getting outdated, really. I know it was fashionable for a while to like do these kind of home videos and all that, but it's it's really hard to make music without musicians, or having everybody being separate and doing all this stuff. And I don't know. It's definitely a mental drain.
As soon as COVID-19 is handled and dealt with, I will be back up there and I'll play until your ears fall off, and then you'll kick me out.
Have your new car up here.
Well, as you know, I'm doing this little series about classical music and how it affects us emotionally. So maybe let's just start with the basics. Can you tell us about your personal history with classical music?
Yeah, I mean, I when you mentioned you're going to do this series, I think first of all it's a great idea, and I really liked your first episode. I thought it was really cool.
Thanks.
But I began thinking about my relationship with music and classical music, and where I am now, and I think what's really amazing is that I'm still working on ideas that I sort of formulated when I was just a young kid practicing piano and studying music, and I think it's funny how it's not like some great new innovation or anything. It's sort of like honing like a very simple skill, and or basically trying to come to this awareness of this one idea. And when I started, I had to convince my parents to give me piano lessons, but I
But you asked them for it?
Yeah, but they I really wanted to do music. I knew it was something I wanted to do, and I sort of would build my own contraptions to play music on, and then
Wow.
finally I remember my mom saying to my dad, maybe we should get Marco some piano lessons. And my dad was like, well, that means we have to get a piano. And so no, I mean, he was encouraging, but the thing that I recall most about it was that when I started playing, I was always interested in the idea of what the composer was writing, and then how it related to me, and how I might reinterpret that idea. I would listen to orchestral music, but but piano was really where I was rooted because that's what I played. And so it was through my imagination that I would take these piano pieces that I worked on and think about, if they weren't piano pieces, how they could have a whole another world to them. Some of my favorite pieces were like the preludes of Debussy, the piano preludes. I think they were so evocative of my young mental state. Schubert, I loved playing his pieces. The Impromptus especially were so much fun to play. Beethoven, certainly. The thing that stuck with me most, and the thing that I've wrestled with most, and has really inspired me continuously over the years, was Bach's preludes and fugues, but especially the preludes. I felt like there was something hidden within them. Like it had a key to unlock different journeys, like almost like little adventures, spiritual landscapes, or whatever you'd call it. And I knew it had this inner potential, but I didn't know really what to do with it at the time. And I sort of just let it sit as the years went, and I went to college, and I studied geology. And,
really?
Well, yeah.
Were you about to become a geologist instead of a composer?
No, my parents didn't want me to pursue music, so I was a geology major for 2 years, and my advisor said, "Marco, you should really think about doing something else because you can't seem to tell one rock from another."
Thank God for that advisor.
At first I was lost. I'm like, shit, now what do I do? But throughout this time I've been writing music and working on things. So I applied to music school, and that's when I really started to buckle down on the theoretical aspects and all that. And up until that point, it was just a pastime, something I enjoyed. And then I think probably when I came out here and started doing film music, I began to view music in a different light. Or I should say, I viewed my relationship to the Bach preludes in a different light. I began to get the confidence, I guess, to feel like I could be honest with Bach and pay homage to it, but yet discover those worlds that I had thought about as a kid. I started on this project to reimagine, I guess you'd say, some of the preludes. And I think a lot of it I was really inspired after hearing you play, Sandy. Like, we'd done that Snowpiercer thing together, and I just realized how much of an amazing musician you were, and how musical, and how you just understood perfectly without me having to talk about it, even what the emotion of the piece was. It's not like I had to spell it out and shape it and talk. You inherently knew what to do with the music, and that really gave me hope that this project could be something enjoyable and fun, and to make it sort of centered around your playing, and have an ensemble that would have other colors as well.
I remember 2 years ago when you approached me with number 2.
Yeah.
And, I'm a traditionalist, and I typically shy away from listening to reinterpretations of anything as old as Bach, just because it's hard for me to imagine something else that could be like equally or more amazing than the original. And so when you sent it to me at first, I was like, okay, I got to get ready to listen to this because I have no idea what it's going to be. And then I heard it, and it was just like, oh my God, like I can never hear this prelude again, like the original again, and think of it in the same way, because you've just completely blown my mind and created this new world out of it. It was so amazing. But also, the very first two things that you do in that piece is have me play these ridiculously hard arpeggios. And so when I heard that, I thought, okay, is he trying to kill me?
Yeah, I mean, you may as well start off, lay your cards on the table. It was really important for me to see if this was going to be a viable project, if this was going to work. And the fact that you responded to it, and the fact that it you know, came out the way it did, I was encouraged to really pursue this and to delve into those ideas that I had from so long ago, and that's really been fun. It's been almost like it's like you're coming to terms with demons and everything that have and beautiful things that have haunted you for your whole life. So it's really been a great project.
Well, what I love most about all of these pieces that you've written is that they're so transformed, but at the same time, there's such a clear connection to the original Bach preludes. You maintain the integrity of what he wrote while also expanding it into new realms, greater depths. And I think a lot of people think of Bach as this, like cold stone figure who lived over 200 years ago. And the way that you've written these pieces, like, brings forth so much to the imagination, and it just makes, when I listen to them, it makes me feel things, which I think is amazing, because, Bach is often so removed that it becomes difficult to listen to one of his piano preludes, for example, and be able to relate with it on an emotional level. But with your pieces, it becomes extremely easy to just feel it and be there in the moment with the music.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, his pieces were like a template. It's almost like, it's these things are there. It's like going beneath the surface. It's like unlocking something and tapping into it. I mean, they're austere works. They're there's no dynamics written in. It's very monochromatic. It's just it's one sound, but within them is so much vitality. Like, there's so much there. There's dance rhythms that are in there, inherent in it. There's all kinds of hidden melodies that come out just by contracting or expanding the harmonies. You get a completely different harmonic world, a whole way of opening it up. I mean, without Bach, there wouldn't be contemporary music. People have unwittingly expanded on the things that he's put forth anyway. What I was just doing is doing it in a very direct, here's Bach, here's what I'm doing, a very direct way. In number 8, for example, which was, I think, the second one that I did, when I used to play the piece at the piano, I couldn't help but get this image of like an old man walking down the street, sort of hunched over, plodding along, but also yet very refined and respected. And I find it really interesting now because I was playing the music and seeing imagery with it at the time. Which, now I see as come in, I have a sense of picture in music with what I do, but at that time I had no idea. Approaching it now and knowing what I do and knowing, for instance, Nino Rota's score to Il Casanova, it makes me view this idea of man walking down the street in a completely new light. And so it's the same concept that I had when I was, I think I was a teenager. I don't know exactly how old, but it's like something that I can do, evolve now, something I can develop. That was sort of my guiding principle to Prelude number 8. And how could I bring that to light? How can I effectively bring that into the music of Bach? How did Bach inspire that? Like I start off with the glass harmonica, which is playing some of the chordal stuff in it. The fingers are rubbed across these rotating glass cylinders, and I feel like there's something in it that's very expressive in a human way, and in an almost painful way. I almost feel like the arthritis in my joints when I hear it. I don't know, and so I thought that was like a good instrument to start that with harmonics too, with the string harmonics, which start out, because that too, it's very delicate and they're very beautiful, but they're also very tentative. I mean, there's something that the intonation of them is it's very elusive, and just the way that the tone of the instrument it gives you a sensation, a physical feeling, something delicate that you want to hang on to, that it could break at any time, and I feel like this old man has that beauty inside him, and he starts off, it's very fragile, and then as the instruments come in, it's like he still has the vigor of his youth. It's in there, even if it's only in his mind, and maybe he can only imagine things. But the different instruments as they come in, especially when the violin comes in with the double stop figure, it's almost like it's his agility, it's his there's something very vibrant and athletic, alive in him, even if he's not able to, it's not the technically most challenging runs that you've ever played or anything, but for him, it's all he needs. It's imagination. It's he's still able to have, see the beautiful woman and be able to. He still has the sly twinkle in his eye that will allow him to seduce and dance, and, live. It's a testament to being alive, I think.
I think playing this piece is gonna feel a little bit different from now on, just because hearing you describe this imagery around it is making me, I'm finding a way to relate to it even more personally. Like what you were talking about kind of reminds me of just how I feel in life as a musician. When I'm not on stage performing and I'm just trying to be a human being, I feel extremely awkward. And then the moment that I'm up there making music with other people and sharing it with the audience, I feel alive, and like everything and anything is possible, just even if it's only within my own imagination. And it feels kind of like that, you know, like that feeling of being old on the outside, but totally vibrant on the inside. And that's very
exactly.
cool.
It's, I mean, that's it exactly. And yeah, and I think that's why, you know, I'm against this means this or whatever, you know, this musical phrase, the programmatic nature of it. But in terms of the concept, that's exactly what I thought of. It's like, hold on, you know, here is all these things that's in me and I feel, but let me just stop and appreciate that for a minute, and then life resumes.
I think it's extremely encouraging to know that a composer such as yourself can be writing something that's not necessarily, well, that's not programmatic music, but still has imagery or, you know, emotions surrounding that. I know all of the pieces in this project have titles, but are all of them based on imagery, or are some of them just about a collection of emotions? Or
I would say most of them are not based on imagery. Most of them is just a question of recapturing or looking into things that were inspired when I was younger, looking at the pieces. I remember being like wondering, you know, what is American music? Like what, like we hear Copeland or you hear pieces and it has a very American sound, and why is that? And what gives it that character? And exploring, I remember like when doing number 3, thinking about that a lot. And number 5, you know, it's almost like this limitless optimism. Maybe I remember as I got older, I changed that view of limitless optimism. But I wanted to tap into that feeling of like that pure feeling that I had when I was younger, and those two are the only ones in a major key, actually, and so it's not based on specific imagery, you know, it's more on a concept. Certain ones were built on musical ideas. Number 10, for instance, this idea of everyone, and it's an ensemble of 17 musicians, of almost like everyone being a soloist and sort of following, almost like following the leader, chasing the tail of the other person, and how that changes the resulting harmonies. And you know, in Bach, there's he's a master at manipulating harmonies, and so taking that, keeping the harmonic language, but how does that get affected when you start layering them like that? And then I think it you know begins to take on a life of a development of its own.
Well, number 10 I think is really cool, where you describe everyone being a soloist, because playing that to me also feels like, you know, I'm in a congregation of people, and there's like an issue or something, and we're all trying to figure out how to resolve it, and you know, everybody's thoughts matters, everybody's speaking, everyone has a voice, everyone has something to say, and then there are these moments where you just have to say, okay, enough, and let's get organized. But it just feels so like human. I mean, maybe that's weird to say because you're human and you wrote it, but it doesn't feel like abstract classical music, you know. It feels like action, and also I love the idea that some of these are just based on a certain feeling, like number 5, that purity that you spoke of, because the first time I heard it and played it, and actually all the times that I hear it and play it, it just brings me back to that childhood purity I guess for me, it was when I was about 5 years old. The world was like my oyster, and everything was amazing. And I was beginning to like discover my own way of thinking, and I just, there was all of this limitless optimism, as you called it. The amazing thing too is that now, because of what you've written, every time I go back and hear the original Bach prelude, I'm always filled with that optimism and that feeling of purity. But also going back to you discovering melodies that come out of these Bach preludes, that are not necessarily in the preludes. They're all yours. But I can't hear number 5 without hearing your melodies now singing along in my head. And it makes me wonder, Bach, why didn't you think of this?
That's what is so great about music, and it's that one thing inspires another.
It's inspiring to play, and it's inspiring to listen to, and I think that is always the goal in performance, is that when you bring new music to an audience, you want them, well, as a performer, I want the audience to be as excited as I am about the music that I'm playing, and then it comes full circle, because then if they love that music, then we're all just like one big happy family.
That's what actually was so exciting to me about. I remember the first, like, some of the greatest moments for me was when I would just finish writing the piece, and then you'd come over and I played it for you, and I'd have your reaction, whether you were crying after it and lying on the floor, like on a couple, but or on this, like the way you were, it made you so happy, like you instinctively, right off the bat, understood what it is that I was doing with, and then watching you play it, and the whole ensemble having fun playing it, and that, to me, like, that's why I got the name The Barn, because to me that's what this place should be, the studio here. And it was originally built, we called it The Barn because it was supposed to be a barn, but it makes me think of Americana, like a hayloft, or people, kids jumping around and having fun, and it's just pure enjoyment. It's nothing, there's no ulterior motives, there's nothing deeper, there's nothing, it's just, pure.
Before the pandemic, I remember, every time I talked to you or see you, you were always so busy, being a hotshot film composer, working on multiple projects at the same time. And it just always made me wonder, like, how you have time to work on a project like this. Obviously, you have to make time. So I guess my real question is, why is it so important to you to keep writing classical music, even though, you've been writing film music for most of your life?
I mean, I get a lot of enjoyment from writing film music. Sometimes I think some of the best ideas can come about, but through this collaborative business and all that. But the form of the pieces, the length, the way they develop, everything has to be dictated. I've had ideas of things that I want to do that are, even though maybe there's some are inspired by imagery inside of me, they're not to any picture, and it's based on the things that inspired me, the classical music as I grew up, which is, it still resides in me. I wanted to be a concert composer. I was very inspired when I was at Yale School of Music. My main teacher there, Jacob Druckmann, his writing was so influential to me in terms of the orchestral colors and everything, timbres, and but I realized the more I was there that you can't just be an academic. I couldn't. At the same time, while I was at college, I began to hear for the first time, really, I mean, I've heard it, some film scores that were amazingly impactful for me. When I was a kid, Fantasia was impactful, but since then, the spaghetti Western scores of Morricone. And I began to make connections between what he's doing and what Jacob Druckmann's doing and what just music in general does. And, what Morricone was doing with exploring timbres by using sounds like, the reverb of an amp as an instrument or whatever, is the same thing that Druckmann was doing by, exploring bowing behind the bridge and using found sounds and things, whatever it happened to be. And that really opened my eyes to putting my own sense of visual sensation and picture and music together, which I had developed as an early kid, with music, and I began to look into it more. I became a huge fan of Jerry Goldsmith, and I sort of got hooked on film scoring, and came out here.
I think it's awesome that you mentioned Fantasia. That was a really big thing for me too. It was a huge part of my foundation as a musician, actually. And this is going to sound really stupid, but because of Fantasia, which I saw when I was like 4 years old or something, I was just so thrilled that there was a movie that was no dialogue. It was just picture, like imagination, and some of my favorite pieces of classical music. And for a embarrassingly long time, I thought that all film music was just classical music repurposed for the film. And I didn't know that film composers existed.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I mean, I don't know how old I was, probably around the same age when I saw Fantasia. And talk about a movie having an impact. I mean, some movies have an impact. That was like mind blowing.
I think it's also amazing because, the idea that they did that, and then people like you or me then thought that a lot of film music was actually classical music. It took somebody to tell me that film music is not the same as classical music. And at first I thought that was, that was ridiculous. Of course it is. But, there are just so many connections that I see now. And I think it's really important to understand how, classical music, just as much, if not more sometimes, just because it has the ability to go exploring a little deeper than, a cue in a film. They're both emotion based primarily. And so many kids, their first experience of hearing orchestral music is through film. And it would be so easy to just adopt feelings that you have when you're watching picture and listening to music to then go and listen to music that was written 200, 300, 400 years ago and come up with your own pictures in your head. And it's just as powerful.
Oh yeah. That's ideal. Unfortunately, the way the concert setting is that it sort of pushes you away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really hard. And whereas the film is immersive, concerts are often distancing. So I think that there's a lot of people that are unnecessarily unaware of classical music and concert music because they're not exposed to it, you know. And if they are, they feel like they have to treat it a certain way.
Yeah, that's why I love hearing you talk about, what it means for you as you're writing these pieces, because, like you said, the concert hall is not immersive in the same way that, a movie theater is. But knowing that you have ideas and emotions and, and sometimes imagery just breathes new life into something that would otherwise be considered abstract because of its setting.
Yeah, I think that what you're doing to expose people and talk about it and talk about pieces and the way you show it and is I'm in awe of what you're doing. So I'm your fan.
But I was your fan first.
I guess I can't win this one.
Well, thank you so much, Marco, for being here today and talking us through your composing experiences, all your emotional reactions, inspirations, and imagery. It's really fun to hear all about this.
Well, it's really a pleasure to talk with you about it. I know I'm not the most eloquent speaker, but I hope the point of it got across, and I don't know. It's been really an honor to work on this with you, Sandy.
Thank you. Same here. It's such an honor and a pleasure. And well, I enjoyed our conversation, so hopefully other people will too. All right. Bye, Marco.
Bye.
I really cannot wait to be able to perform all of these pieces for you in concert, hopefully someday soon. As always, thank you for joining me. Sharing music with you really brightens up my day, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Stay tuned to find out more information on my next episode. Bye! On November 25th, join me in exploring one of my favorite themes by Schubert with a set of variations that I wrote for 2 violins. Can't wait to share this with you!